This online module addresses Task 1 of the EdTPA, Planning. In this module, we will look closely at the planning task and criteria on rubrics 1 through 5. View the evidence chart on page 46 through 52 in the Special Education Handbook for a summary of the key components and key pieces of evidence. All the way through the planning process, be thinking about and getting ready to answer questions on repeat. This schematic gives an overview of the teaching process. The EdTPA learning segment is nested within this process. Understanding the rubrics helps focus you on exactly what the EdTPA looks at to assign points. Each prompt on the planning commentary corresponds with at least one rubric. On Canvas, please find and use the blank think sheet under the Home tab in the container that is labeled Review these files related to Task 1 Planning. 3 main factors influence your score on Rubric 1. Alignment between the IEP goal, learning goal, lesson objectives, planned supports, and communication skill. The objectives for each lesson need to be written in measurable terms and sequenced logically to show progression from baseline performance toward reaching the learning target. As you work through the EdTPA, your focus will be on how the lesson objectives move the student closer to the learning goal. Clearly defined measurable outcomes include a condition, which is the content, task, or context. What will the student be asked to do? For example, when given a worksheet with 10 addition problems, ... They also include a clearly defined behavior that is observable, measurable. What will the student actually do? For example, will solve the problems. And they include the performance criteria, the level of performance and consistency. What and how often will the student demonstrate the behavior? For example, with 100% accuracy or an 8 out of 10 opportunities. Here are some examples. One is from Early Childhood Special Education Math. Focused learner will be able to count objects with up to 10 with 100% accuracy. Early Childhood Special Education Language, focused learner will be able to expressively use prepositions in, on, in front of, behind to describe the location of objects with 100% accuracy. Middle Childhood, Early Adolescence Special Education Writing, with support, the focused learner will be able to complete a graphic organizer to plan a 5-sentence paragraph that includes a topic, introduction, 3 details, and a summary statement. Early Adolescence Special Education Reading. Focused learner will be able to sort reading comprehension questions related to social studies text into red, yellow, or green types with 90% accuracy. Backwards design, or beginning with the end in mind, will help you establish a logical sequence for your lesson objectives. The 3 stages of backwards design are 1, identify desired results. What do you want the student to know and do? 2, determine acceptable evidence. How will you assess to be sure that the student can reach the goal? And 3, plan learning experiences and instruction. Provide the details that are typically included in your lesson plans. Here are 4 ways to lay out a learning segment. The laid out document on Canvas is designed to support you in planning your segment using one of these 4 methods. 1, expect greater levels of performance for a particular skill. So with similar tasks, you could expect higher levels of performance from baseline to lesson 1 to lesson 2 to lesson 3. Another way is to use increasingly challenging material, procedures, or tasks. The third way is to reduce or fade the type or amount of support. And the fourth way is to work from part to whole. So lay it out. What are the next steps? Write your learning goal at the end. Write the lesson objective from your lesson plan in the first box on the laid out sheet. Think about how to build your lesson to move closer to the learning goal and sketch out 2 to 4 more lessons that would move your focus learner closer to the goal. What would these lesson objectives look like? On rubric 2, your focus with planning should be to aim to describe how you planned this learning segment to address strengths and needs of your focus learner, possibly reaching toward the score of 4 by addressing challenge and interests. So to know what those strengths and needs are, you need to collect baseline data. You can do this through direct observation, formal and informal assessment, pre-testing, or getting input from other stakeholders. Then you'll select plan supports that could help the focus learner move from baseline performance levels toward reaching the criterion for each lesson objective. Examples of planned supports might include the accommodations and modifications that are listed in the IEP, differentiating your instruction, including mnemonics or visual aids, using assistive technology, using prompts, role-playing, a word wall, sentence frames, anchor charts, or making some modification to the learning environment. On rubric 3, plan your instructional methods, how you will teach in each lesson, so that you can connect the focus learner's strengths and needs, and you can connect to research or theory. There's a chart on Canvas that gives an at-a-glance overview of ideas for how to connect with research and theory. So research and theory. Think about what is your approach and what general theories or pedagogical approaches guided you. For example, explicit instruction. Is there a specific research-based practice that you're using or that you have drawn from to plan your instruction? For example, close reading. Here are additional sources where you can find research or theory to connect with. One is the What Works Clearinghouse. Another for math interventions could be Intervention Central. For reading, something like readwritethink.org could work. Some common connections between research and theory align the planned supports of using manipulatives with research by Butler and colleagues using graphic organizers. There's a meta-analysis by Lim, Vaughn, Wanzek, and Wee using modeling to improve academic achievement. There's a study by Mansett, Williamson, and Nelson using reinforcement to improve academic performance. There's a study by Sutherland, Wiebe, and Copeland. So plan supports can connect to research and theory. You can find the handout on Canvas. Rubric 3, to reach toward the score of 5, requires that you address generalization and maintenance of the skill or behavior that you're targeting in your lesson objective. Generalization means applying that skill to new learning, like other contexts and situations. So if the skill relates to asking WH questions. Can they do that in the context of reading a story one-on-one with you? Can they apply that in social studies class later when they're not with you? Can they apply that at home when interacting with family members? That would be generalizing that skill across settings. Maintenance means, can they demonstrate that they've retained that knowledge over time? So you would have to repeatedly assess that after you've faded your direct teaching to see that they maintain it. Some strategies to promote generalization and maintenance are using supports in other contexts with similar tasks, giving multiple examples and opportunities for practice during instruction, and providing instruction in a variety of settings with other individuals. Rubric 4 focuses on the communication skill. So we plan and think through, what are the communication demands? What does the task require so that the student can meaningfully participate in instruction and or demonstrate learning to ultimately be able to reach that learning goal? So communication language demands of a learning task include any of the receptive language skills like listening, reading, or expressive language skills, speaking and writing, needed by the learner to engage in, complete, and learn from the task successfully. When identifying communication demands of your planned lesson and assessment, consider everything that the focused learner must do to participate in instruction and or learning, and or do to demonstrate their learning. So do they have to listen to directions, read a piece of text, answer a question out loud, prepare a presentation, write a summary, respond to written questions, research a topic, talk within a small group of peers? All of these common activities create a demand for receptive and expressive communication. So how do you identify a communication skill? You identify possible expressive communication skills that are related to the learning goal, that will be used by the student to participate in the learning task and or demonstrate learning, and then find verbs that tell how the student will demonstrate the skill. For example, they will read, write, demonstrate, explain, or use. Be able to describe planned supports that facilitate the focused learner's use of that skill, and explain or provide evidence of the student's use of the communication skill during instruction. So this is what you want to think about while writing your plan. How are you going to capture evidence of that student using that skill? How are you going to justify that you planned supports to get the student to use that communication skill? So let's look at this another way. We want to align our communication skill with the learning goal, and we want to think through the language demands of our instruction so that the student can participate successfully and meet those language demands. Demands for a given lesson might require that the student use what they know about the structure of language or grammar to write or speak. They might require the student to use specific vocabulary terms. They might emphasize how the student uses language to do things like ask and answer questions or make requests. Be sure that you write your communication skill using a strong verb. Like focused learner will read, write, use a vocab word, or explain. Think about this. What expressive, reading, writing, speaking, or signing language does your focused learner need to improve in order to be able to participate in instruction and or demonstrate their learning? Rubric 5 evaluates our planned assessments. We want to plan how we will assess the focused learner's performance of the skill that they're working on in each lesson. How will we know whether that daily objective was met? Your score on Rubric 5 will be based on the data that you present and the extent to which it aligns with the learning goal. Some examples of daily assessments include work samples across the learning segment, specifically from the work during and after instruction, checklists of skills or expectations, anecdotal notes, but with specific observation focused on progress toward the daily objective and learning goal, exit tickets, or a short check on a related skill. So the slides in this video have helped you anticipate what you'll write about in your planning commentary. Use that anticipation to develop the plans for your learning segment. The supporting documents called Lay It Out and Planning Think Sheet are available on Canvas and are meant to help ensure that you address all of these components that will be assessed in rubrics 1 through 5 before you write your detailed lesson plans. So use the Lay It Out document and the Planning Think Sheet before you write your detailed plans.